Well, Mr. Hamilton, it seems that you have a fever.
Oh no, man. Is that why I totally crashed my Pagani in Monaco in it?
No, but you could certainly use it as an excuse.
So this fever, what do I do about it, boy?
Well, the main thing is to rest and relax. Have you been up to anything that could cause agitation or excitement?
Well, I drove in last weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix.
Right, so that's a no.
Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm the lower than usual frequency of Gareth Jones. He's the middling frequencies of Richard Porter.
Hello.
And because he wasn't an unmitigated disaster last time, we've asked him back. Alex, welcome back to On Speed. And Finn, yes.
Hello.
Finn.
Wasn't that Violet?
I think
Was that Violet?
Going meow.
Oh, hang on, let me go
nonetheless-
see. I'm afraid I have to see if it was... Girlfriend, was that you?
Oh, it's like what you think you're like round a mate's house. You've got to hide the beer because someone's mum's home.
No, it was number 2 son saying goodnight downstairs. That's what
Alex just had a brilliant reaction though.
What?
Beer? No.
It sounded like Violet was back, and he was just like, "Oh, hide the beer."
Correct. I thought we'd talk about brands for part of this show. We covered the fact that Lancia are about to vanish from the known universe. So the question is, after Lancia, in the pecking order of brands, who are we going to lose next? In other words, who's the next rover? Opel? Vauxhall? He said pointedly.
No.
Vauxhall won't die, it'll just limp on and be awful.
Who buys Vauxhalls? Isn't it a dying audience? Aren't the people who buy Vauxhalls all in their 70s now?
No,
or are they
I don't-
buying
I don't-
Hondas?
I don't think so, because they have a dealer in every town, don't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
And they do good deals. They just sort of bluster on.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're-
their cars are all in the top 10 for sales, aren't they? They will support themselves. In fact, I think Vauxhall is one of the more successful bits of the GM Europe operation, isn't it? They're not going anywhere.
I remember when GM in the States were having big trouble, it was Vauxhall Opel who effectively bankrolled and propped them up for a while because they were doing better, weren't they?
And also there's an interesting thing whereby the Vauxhall Opel cars are now being sold in the US as Buicks and other things. And so you can buy a sort of version of the Insignia over there.
It's a Buick something over there. And the Astra, I think the last gen Astra?
Yeah.
No, one before now was a Saturn
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
It
There
was
was-
in a Transformers movie.
Yeah.
There was a Shia LaBeouf hanging out of an Astra. And I remember seeing one of the pictures from on set, some spy picture on a website or something. It was like, that's an Astra. He's in the best position.
Hey!
Getting out.
Actually,
On high.
I'm just thinking that Vauxhall have had a stay of execution by the death of their unwanted sibling Chevy in the UK anyway. Is Chevy still selling in Europe? They've killed them in
No.
Britain, haven't they?
But the reason why Chevy died was because people were going into a Chevy showroom drawn in by the sort of low prices that advertised in the local paper. But then the Vauxhall dealer was going, well, look, do you know what? For a couple £100 more, you can have an Astra or a Corsa, whatever. And people were going, well,
It's like a cruise,
do you know what?
but better.
Yeah.
Because
the
you know
interior
us.
is a little bit nicer, and in a weird pecking order, Vauxhall was sort of seen probably as a little bit more prestigious than Chevrolet.
Yeah.
Which they sort of backfired on them in a bit because they thought that people reacted warmly to the idea of a Chevrolet, but what they really reacted warmly to was the idea of some 1950s American car with enormous fins on it.
Yeah.
And
Not a Korean
rather
car.
dismal Korean-made car. So
Or
Not
built
fun.
in the Czech Republic, wasn't it?
Not a fun Chevrolet story. One of my first ever video reviews was a Chevrolet Spark
Oh, yeah.
for
yeah.
a website run by my mate Massimo. I said I wanted to do video, and so he said, oh, come and have a go at this. We've got a Chevrolet Spark for you. So we had it. And it was a very, very early car, like straight off the boat. The car was delivered to me. I went to pick up the cameraman, a lovely chap called Ed. And we thought, right, it's going to be a long day, so let's go get some lunch. So we went round to Tesco around the corner, popped it into space, went and got lunch. And then as we were going to leave, I tried to put it in reverse, which is where sixth would be, if it had 6 speeds. And it wouldn't go in. But thankfully it was an open space, so I just kind of went forward and thought, oh, it's just me being an idiot, let's hide this, because I don't want the cameraman to think I'm a moron. Anyway, went out in first, couldn't grab second. So I was like, okay. Third, chugged it along, went, oh, my bad, whoops, made a mistake. Got out to the open road, and I only had first, third and fifth.
Wow. Top line gears.
That was it. And it turned out a tiny plastic widget had broken, but we spent 4 hours waiting for a recovery truck to try and get the spark taken home.
It's just like when I flew to the south of France once to go on Evo's Car of the Year, and the deal was I flew in on my own, rented an estate car, and then went to join the rest of the team because the estate would be used for camera tracking, so the photographer would line the boot open and take pictures of all the supercars and things we had. So I left my hire car, which was in my name and on my credit card, with the photographers. And car photographers aren't known for their mechanical sympathy. And when I got the car back, that only had odd-numbered gears. And every time you tried to put it into second or fourth or sixth, it just bounced out again. And all the way back to the airport when we'd finished, I was rehearsing in my GCSE French how I was going to explain this to the hire car people. Est-ce qu'il y a un problème avec la boîte de vitesse? Nous avons un, 3 et 5, mais ne pas de... And I was running this through in my... And I got up to the desk and I went, bonjour. C'est un problème avec le boîte... And the woman went, what? And I went, Ilya, and she went, what, the car is broken? Yeah, the car's broken, the gearbox is knackered. She went, okay. And then just she didn't even blink.
Oh.
Because it was a Peugeot 307 and presumably they all did that, sir.
Sounded with the car, sir, sound.
Yes, exactly.
All right then, if it's not Vauxhall, if it's not Opel, who can it be? Is it...
Seat.
Yeah?
Oh, do you think?
Right, Volkswagen, problems.
Yeah.
Problems only getting
Much worse.
Even at the time of recording, seeming pretty bad. I suspect by the time the show is published in just a few short hours, they'll get even worse again.
At the time of recording, the petrol engines are now a bit knackered.
Yeah, and now there's a Porsche with the diesels and all this sort of... So they're dragging everyone in.
Yeah.
There's got to be a patsy at some point. There's got to be something that gives. And I just don't know how long they can tolerate the fact that Seat has never found their groove. And let's be honest... all of the load could be shared between Volkswagen and Skoda and Audi, and what's the point of Seat?
There's a lot of love for Skoda.
For them, if they're being ruthless and they're going, let's just save some money here.
Seat in the UK, certainly. In Spain, they can't ditch it at all.
Mm-hmm.
But
just rebadge Skodas or something. How many Skodas do they sell in Spain? I don't know the information on this one, but I'm just guessing it's not many.
No.
But just rebadge Skodas, which they practically do anyway with the
Rapide
/ Toledo and the Up and the Me, and what's called Citigo and the Me. And,
the Citigo, the Me and the Up. Well, the Citigo and the Up, as I like to call
them. Go up, me City.
Hey!
But either way, it just seems that Seat would be the least justified member of that whole Volkswagen group. They don't seem to do anything unique that can't be a burden shared amongst some other company.
They've got the whole Cupra thing, which holds more value than the VRS.
But does it?
To enthusiasts
I think
like
they keep
us.
plugging away, but at the same time, they're doing fine with that. And if they put a bit more oomph behind it, maybe. I don't know how many Cupra Seats they sell versus normal Seats, which is the bread and butter.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. And the factories, the Seat factories, could be usefully employed just making cars for other people, because they already make like the Audi Q3 down there and various Polos and things like that. So it's not like they'd have to lay off a lot of people, and they have that design studio down on the Med, which again, they do design work for the rest of the group anyway. So sort of just Seat as a company just sort of feels like they could...
I don't like it, but you've made a really valid point, and I think it's time for them to die now.
Why, though? Why have Seat failed to gain traction pretty much starting from zero, whereas Skoda had to sort of go back beyond zero and start again, and they've managed to do it
that's
in
easier.
the UK.
I think that's easier.
Yeah.
If you start from a position of below zero, do you remember all those stickers that used to be in the back of Skodas when the Octavia first came in?
Yeah.
They said something like...
It was jokey, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it really is a Skoda.
It's a Skoda.
Yeah.
That's it. They had nothing to lose, and that's a really powerful position to be in.
Whereas early Seats had, no, it's been engineered by Porsche, written down the side.
But then it's almost...
That added 15 horsepower, though, you know.
That's just a sticker. Not the
It says
engineering.
Porsche on it, 15 horsepower. Worth it every time.
I quite like those early Ibithas. They're nice with gyro styling, Porsche tuned, or Porsche developed engine.
I saw one in the wild the other day, driving at me at speed in France in blanket, horrible torrential rain. He was committed. I bet it looked good.
Did the French like that car because it had a single windscreen wiper like a Citroen? It's a little local marketing thing. Thing is, the French are very good at looking after their cars. Or at least keeping their cars.
I think it's
in
more
France,
keeping them, not looking after them.
Oh no, because they're all dented to buggery, but it's not the point.
They abuse
just sort of...
them just the right amount.
Yes.
They keep working, but they don't really function properly.
Being in France explains a lot about French cars, because my colleague Richard Hammond once said this as a very, very salient point, that a great Peugeot, the Peugeots of the 80s, yes, bits of trim would fall off, but that was really the car just shedding unnecessary weight, because the fundamentals were there. The hull was strong, the engine was strong, and yes, the door handle might come off and the glove box fell open, but they're mere fripperies. These don't affect the function of the car if you are a French farmer and you need to get to town and back.
You could argue the same for Italian cars.
But I always
City
feel...
cars,
yes. Yeah. But I think the French do it better than anyone. But also, as a genuine point, the French are, I think, much less superficial about their car ownership. Yeah. They won't throw a car away simply because they want a new model. No. They will run the car until it can no longer run. Well, and even then, there might be a chap in the village who can hammer it and make it work.
There are no premium French brands. I mean, that tells you a great deal about the egalitarianism of the French. Peugeot is the nearest you get, and that's not a premium brand. It's not an Audi, is it?
I will say one thing for brilliant French automotive brands. Thought of the Twizy, you can get the quick one, the less quick one, but there's one you can get in France that's basically an invalid scooter. Because the idea is, if you get banned from driving, you can't drive a car. But you can buy the 7 horsepower Twizy, so if you've had a few red wines of an evening, you can still drive it home and not lose your licence. Because it's technically
but this is
the
same
bike.
As those
Axiams.
Axiams.
Yeah.
Because I was once in a French village. I think I've said this on the show before, that I saw this man come out of the local cafe, and he sort of walked towards the car with the key extended like a small dagger, and then took what seemed like about 5 minutes trying to get it in the lock, and then finally got into the car and puttered off. And we were watching this and we were thinking, oh my God, that man is drunk beyond belief, and yet he's being allowed to drive because that's technically not a car.
It's not a car.
And if I remember correctly, the last time you told that story, we segued into a sketch of Jean Todt turning out to be the driver of that car.
Oh yeah, we did, didn't we? One from the archives there.
Hello, John Bowles here. I'm sorry to report that me and Graham Loudon, oh no, we've decided we've had enough of this F1 lark and we're going to knock it on 10. Aye. All that remains is for us to thank everyone what helped us over years, and that means a big thank you to all our sponsors. Aye. Thanks B&B. Is that it? Aye. Oh, bugger.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
Would someone like to sound the death knell? Do you know what the death knell actually sounds like? Is it a bell?
I think it's like a dong.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Would someone like to sound the death knell for the forgotten brands? Right, I'll start with Lola.
Dong.
Rover.
Dong.
Simca.
Dong.
And here's a query on this one. Daimler. Can you still buy a Daimler?
No.
Okay.
But
I'm going to go with
Dong it up then.
Dong.
Yeah.
Dong.
My favourites, Perodua.
No, wait. Whoa,
Dong. Maybe. You can.
They're still going in Malaysia, aren't they? They're
Yes.
just not selling cars. In fact, are they selling cars here? Maybe they are.
Not in the UK.
The last
No,
time I
maybe
interacted with a Perodua, I was told the press fleet age limit was 25 and I was 24. And I was like, oh no, I can't drive 1 litre of Canary. What a shame.
It's a powerhouse. Daihatsu.
Well, in the UK.
Yeah, I am generally talking about the UK, really,
right.
at the moment. Yeah, Daihatsu, which I think was a bit of a surprise because they had lots of support, Daihatsu, mainly Welsh farmers who thought they were buying a Welsh car. Seriously, though, there were lots of Daihatsus in Wales.
A four-track was a...
very popular.
And the lesser-loved Sport Track.
So we reckon Seat's going to be next. If you were going to bring one of those brands back, Daihatsu, Perodua, Daimler, Simca, Rover, Lola, which one would it be and how?
Some kind of satanic ritual and Rover.
Satanic. Get the Ouija board out. The ghost of...
I'd stand in the middle of a pentagram with lots of Rover badges lit on fire at each point. And
Or just a burning Viking longship.
Yeah,
yes.
perfect.
Like a funeral going out to
in
sea.
the shape
or
of a
coming
Rover
back.
75 in
Imagine.
British Racing Green with a tan interior.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's too late to bring Rover back, though, Richard, isn't it? Because it's only you and me and him who actually care about it.
Well,
Rovers.
the thing is, the Rover name is owned by Jaguar Land Rover. So it's eminently possible they could bring it back
never would.
if they wanted to. There is a logic to it, which I see people talking about on the internet quite a lot, mainly Rover enthusiasts, in fairness. But they say, well, look, rather than taking Jaguar down market and doing the XE as a Jag, why did they not bring Rover back as they were, really, as sort of sub-Jags? And it's almost in your hierarchy of British, slightly posh cars. Ooh, it's nicer than a Ford. Rover, then Jaguar, then Rolls-Royce and Bentley,
Well,
perhaps.
many moons ago, my old man was looking for a new car when I was, 10 or something. And his choices were an Audi A4, a Jaguar X-Type, or a Rover 75. And he always thought the Jag X-Type was a bit much. But the 75 or the A4 could work for him. Thankfully, he went for the A4.
The 75 and the Jag S-Type both appeared at the same time, didn't they?
Yes,
I remember, launched at the same
1998
show.
Birmingham Motor Show.
And neither particularly survived, did they?
Well,
The Rover arguably did better, didn't it?
It was certainly a better looking car.
But in terms of sales numbers.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean,
If you include the MG as well.
Yeah, yes. But the thing is, there's a very good reason why I don't think Jaguar will bring Rover back. It's because of all the money it would cost to have to re-establish them. Advertising campaign, rebranding dealers and all that sort of stuff. It's much cheaper for them. Even if Jag decide to do sort of like an Audi A3 / BMW 1 Series
call
kind
that?
of
The
hatchback.
Jaguar
XC?
No, you
XB?
can't call it an XD, you can't call it an XC, because
XA?
technically...
These are all scions in America, aren't they?
XB and XA is all they've got to go with, because XC is technically the XJC.
And doesn't XD means I'm a teenager telling you this, I'm exclaiming?
Does it?
Because
Yeah.
XD is a sideways, you won't be able to see this, but this face...
Yes.
Mouth open, eyes closed,
Yeah.
XD. It's a manga-derived thing, I
Yeah.
believe, isn't it? Yeah.
They probably have to think of something else, like call it the H-type or something for hatchback. I don't know. I'm not sure they would do this. I think they would do something a little bit left field and maybe do like a mini SUV type thing, and they'll call it the H-Pace or some such...
The F.5 pace-ish.
F off.
Yes!
It's an off-roader and it's like the F-Type. But that makes more sense because they have Jag dealerships already. They have Jaguar as a name and they've got all the stationery. There's no need to have any new letterheading done. There's no way Rover's coming back. Absolutely no way.
There have been attempts to bring some brands back, half-arsed attempts in recent years, two of them involving Wales again. That's the third mention for Wales in this show. It's going well.
Why?
AC, there was a plan to build what was the Smart Roadster, the original Smart Roadster, in Wales and badge it as an AC Ace. And the styling thing that they did for it looked really cute. And also that Connaught V10 hybrid.
The Connaught...
that was going to be built in Wales as well.
It was a good-looking thing, but now when I look back at it and you think about it, doesn't it look a bit like the Camaro off of 2008?
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
Also, the back looked a little bit like an Austin 1100. But it was a nice-looking car.
It was a good-looking
designed
thing.
by a guy called Jeff Matthews, who was one of the original designers of the Renault Espace. He
Was
died
it a
recently.
2-litre
Lovely
V10?
man.
Was it 2 or 3?
Something like that, yes. It was improbably
very
small.
V10.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be this hybrid thing, and everyone at the time was like, hybrid supercars. Who'd go
Who'd
for
want
that?
one of those?
Oh,
Here we are. But the brand Connaught, which didn't really mean anything to most people, but it was one of those brands that you think you may have heard of, and it kind of works on that level. I'm starting to sound like Homer Simpson for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, what brands would you bring back? Lola, I've said this before, a Lola road car. People would have that one.
Does it mean anything to people who haven't assiduously followed motorsport for a long time?
But it's one of those brands that you think you may have heard of.
Do I
Oh, yes,
mean
a Lola.
I think I do. Yeah, I don't know. Well, is it a good name or is it just a Kinks song? And
I think that probably helps too. Any familiarity helps, doesn't it?
But I sort of think that Connaught, it's just a sturdy name, isn't it? Even though it does sort of sound like a pub as well.
Yeah.
yeah, but you'd go to the Connaught. You go, where are we going tonight? Connaught. What are you driving? Connaught. Oh,
That's the thing, it's sturdy.
It's like
a sturdy
Brabazon,
name.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd rather Brabazon.
Now there's a name.
Yeah,
there's
that's
a sturdy name.
Yeah. So, okay, in that case, how come Tesla, I say Tesla, not Tesla, Tesla, and what was the other one I was thinking of? Koros seem to be working.
The Chinese...
Yeah.
the
Koros is a
Chinese
brand invented by Chery in China, originally conceived with something called the Israel Corporation Investment
No, it's not.
Fund.
It's not. That's not Cherry. Is it? They're independent.
No, Chery own Koros, own the brand, but half of the brand is now owned by a Singaporean company, but it is Chery. Chery killed two of their other brands and invented Coros out of the blue.
Has anyone driven a Coros yet?
No.
I was in Shanghai earlier this year and I saw one on the roads. And I saw a lot of Rover 75s.
I think you mean
Rover 750s. And a lot of very 350s, which we don't even get here.
Yeah.
But I saw one Coros, and it's a nice looking car. It's designed by the chap who was the chief designer of Mini and did the second generation Mini.
Oh.
German chap.
I don't
know. I think it was all a bit of a crib from the first generation.
If you design a Mini, you're kind of committed to...
Yeah,
what does a Mini look like? Make that
should it have square headlamps?
different.
No, it shouldn't.
Should it be a small car? Not necessarily anymore, no.
I have a thing about people that moan about new Mini.
Okay.
And I will happily vent myself upon you. That sounds a bit wrong.
Hello.
I'm going to run with it.
Go on.
So, people of our vintage know Mini as Mini.
Yeah.
As in the little car. My old man had several of them, and my mates had them when we were at school. But it died, 16 years ago now? It had its death knell signed off, so the new one came out in 2000. So there's a generation of people who only know Minis, not as cheap cars that if you want a bit, you just buy another one and transplant it. Instead, they're cool, funky things that you can aspire to. They're nice, new things that are actually pretty good cars.
That's the same rule as Skoda, you see. Skoda are far enough away from the original Skodas that no one remembers what a Skoda used to be anymore. It's the same with the Mini, yeah.
But I think what people have twigged on with Skoda is now they go, oh, it's kind of like a cut-price Volkswagen.
Yeah.
So that's fine. That's a relevant place to occupy. Someone's got to do it. I mean, assuming you want cut-price lies, but this is just that's a contemporary problem. I'm sure they'll work through it. But the Mini thing is a really good point. It's the same way I've been doing sort of some interviews and stuff to plug my Top Gear book. And
you're writing a book?
I know. I haven't mentioned it before, but I have written a book.
Cool.
Thanks you, and sort of having to to people.
The page of my...
it's in every edition, actually. That's one of the reasons it's probably not selling. Or it maybe is, I don't know. I haven't dared to ask. But having to explain to people that Top Gear wasn't always about three silly men falling over, because a whole generation just don't know that. They don't remember Chris Coffey or William Willard. We do, and God bless them. But that's the thing. If you're of a certain age, you don't remember Skodas were rubbish and comedians used to laugh about them. You don't know what Ladas are at all. And you don't know what Mini really is. You're sort of dimly aware of the history they used to sell the car, but it doesn't really matter.
I just had a revelation. In that sentence that you just drilled out there, I've now realised the perfect brand to bring back. It's been long enough that any memories of what it used to be are forgotten, and we could launch it as a premium brand. Bring back...
It's not Bernard Manning, is it?
No, it's not him, no.
That's good.
Yugo.
Ooh. So what you need to do is you need to take the, according to Richard's soon-to-be-defunct Seat Me, paint it beige, make the metal really thin,
perfect,
and then you're there.
It's a Yugo. Please be welcoming back all new Yugo cars.
Yugo!
Now with top prestige features such as mostly working engine, electrical window, centralized locking system, cruising control, 7 bags of air, and hair conditioning. The all-new, all-luxurious Yugo.
Yugo cars!
Buy now before someone destroy the rest of factory again.
Gareth Jones on speed.
There is one brand of car which has been gone now for how many years, Alex Guy?
The last car they made in America was officially 1983.
Is that right?
But they finished production in 1992.
And this is a car which in some ways is American, in some ways is British, but in many ways is an Irish car. And it's a great brand that you'd bring back. Have you worked it out yet? It's got its own movie series.
If you haven't, this will do it for you. Do 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 do. That should do it.
Do you have to pay copyright on that, Richard? Is
Great
that too much?
scat!
Yeah. It's a brand so good, it even had an album, a concept album, recorded about it by Griff Frizz from Super Furry Animals in the Neon Neon project. Stainless Style was all about the DeLorean. You know this car well, Alex, don't you?
I know this car far too well, and I'm shamelessly going to plug something that is going to come out.
Tell us about it.
On my little channel on the internet. It's the DeLorean DMC12, and how it was not very good, but actually was quite cool. And is quite
correct.
cool.
It wasn't very good, really, but it was immeasurably cool. That's a difficult act to pull off, isn't it?
Yeah.
I did a film with it last year. We went to Humble, Texas, where DeLorean actually lives now. It's run by a Scouse guy called Stephen, and he ran a French car shop in LA. And in the early 80s, people kept coming to him with their broken DeLorean saying, can you fix my engine? Because it was a Peugeot, Renault, Volvo.
The Duvrin V6, I believe they called it.
Hideous, awful, underpowered pile of... But they kept asking him to fix them, and then he got so many of these things. DeLorean then went under, and long story short, he now owns every spare bit of DeLorean ever in what's essentially a glorified shed in Humble, Texas.
Fantastic. It's a bit like the relationship Mayflower had with lots of old MG parts. They sort of kept MG going. Do you remember when the MG RV8 came out?
Yeah.
Mayflower had been pressing the panels for the old MGs and were employed again to build that car for Rover.
Well, was that Mayflower was at the British Motor Industry Heritage Trust with a sort of front for it, weren't they?
That's it.
But I don't know if Mayflower, who are a sort of engineering firm in Coventry, were they actually doing the hard work on that? I'm not
think
sure.
they were, from memory. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory tells me that that's right.
The funny thing about that is that because BMITHT, they have the original tooling, I think, don't they? That's why they're able to make MG, B and Midget, and I think now Mini shells. Brand new, for people who want to restore a rusty old British car. But the DeLorean parts, they can't make.
You can't make them because the tooling was destroyed or the dies were thrown into a very deep bit of sea. The problem they have right now is if you have a DeLorean, they have most of the bits, but I think it's either a left or a right hand wing. If yours is broken, you can't have another one.
Wow.
Like, they have so few, because what happened was when the company was in receivership, they had the stock bits of one side, but they couldn't have the money for the other, so they couldn't get the rest in. So now there's like 6 or some ridiculously tiny number, and you're a bit knackered if you want that particular bit. So if that breaks, or if you have one in your attic, if you have a wing or a door of a DeLorean in your attic...
I'm just going to check now.
Do, because it's worth an enormous sum of money.
Right. What do they like to drive, though? I've never driven one. I almost bought one. I think I said this on the show. I think it was either 5 or 8.5 grand. I can't remember. And I nearly bought one in about 94 or something like that.
And now they go for 30 grand.
Oh, I wish I had.
You should have done. The car I drove was terrible.
Hey!
It was awful. But the reason for it, because we went over there, they knew we were there to drive a car, but they hadn't quite gotten what we wanted to do with it. So they thought, oh, it's a quick ride around the block, then you can write a story, what have you. It's like, no, we need it for the whole day, maybe tomorrow. And Stephen, lovely Stephen Wynn, he went, right, okay, the only one we've got, you can't drive one of the ones that are out on the lot because they're all customer cars. So here's the keys to mine. It's a fixer-upper. The girl who sold it to us, it was a graduation present. And she kept it for all these years, and she took it to them and said, I hear you restore DeLoreans, how much would it be to fix it up and make it good like the ones you have out here? And he said, all of the money. And she then went, well, how much to sell it, because I don't have all of the money and I don't really drive it. And he went, less of the money. And she went, sod it, I'll take less of the money. And it had a life on it. It was a 3-speed auto. When we tried to close one of the doors with the door pull, it came off a bit.
Oh, lovely. I'd heard that. That does happen generally with them, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It was quite spectacular because this leather strap just disintegrated into dust, basically.
Lovely.
The suspension was knackered, the gearbox was terrible, the steering wheel melted in my hand, and the air conditioning leaked manky water all over the passenger
And how much
footwell.
play was there on the steering? That's what I always imagine. It's like trying to steer a boat.
Miles of it. It was awful. But at the same time, normally when we do a shoot, I'm sat there in a car for the whole day driving back and forth all round loops, and I get out of it going, oh, my back hurts or my leg hurts or whatever. I was fine because it's a big comfy boat of a thing. It wasn't supposed to be a
built for
sports
Americans.
car. Yeah. It wasn't supposed to be a sports car. It was supposed to be a lovely thing to go cross country in.
Yeah.
And you could do that. You just probably wouldn't have had that much fun because it was like driving beige. But it was a knackered one. And I've spoken to people who own ones that have been fixed up. We had the Auto, and there's a journalist in the US, guy called Matt Farah. He owns probably the best DeLorean in the world. It's a manual. It's had the engine completely restored and breathed on, so it's got 220 horsepower rather than 130. And it's awesome. But
have you driven Matt Farah's?
I haven't. He said, oh, you can have a go, but it was LA traffic in the middle of a heat wave. I was very hungover. And I didn't quite fancy it because I wasn't sure about the insurance thing. and at the time he was having a big faff getting it registered for the road. So it wasn't actually technically legal in the US anyway.
Probably a smart decision not to drive that car publicly.
Is Matt's, because I've heard him talking about that car. I understand that DeLorean connoisseurs, the Holy Grail is a Euro spec car with Euro suspension with a manual gearbox.
Because the way Chapman figured it, the front was lower than it actually was. It was within the US limits.
The height restrictions for headlamps.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember the Porsche 928 had to be sold in the same period. I remember this from reading a comparative review between the 928 and the DeLorean in Car and Driver in, I guess, what must have been 1982, and I worked in Battersea. I remember, I can see the piece. And the 928 had to be sold with the suspension jacked up so that the headlights, when they were up, reached the minimum height requirement.
But the DeLorean, when it was fresh out the factory, would have met that.
Yeah.
But when it went to America, they went, oh no, this is way too low, and raised it anyway, which is why it's that weird kind of flat thing. It should have been a lot lower.
Yeah, wedge-shaped, leaning forward. Yeah.
Did they not do that? I think they put blocks in the suspension, in this, which is what they did with the MGB as well. Those rubber bumper MGBs are particularly wretched because the right hand is jacked up.
Yeah.
And, Porsche 928s, because you can tell the US spec ones, because they do look all tippy-toed. They sit too
completely
high.
tippy-toe. Yeah.
It's almost like, you know, old shape Merc SLs, the first ones with the folding metal roofs, and they've got that air suspension which you can set to raise up, and sometimes you see people even now driving around them where they've pushed the button maybe by accident and they look like soft roaders, but it's a two-door convertible.
So what would a modern DeLorean be?
Well, here's the crack. I was doing this documentary on it, and part of it I interviewed a load of people, and one of the guys I interviewed was a chap called Barry Wills. Barry, when he started, he was the purchasing guy for DeLorean, and when he finished, he handed the keys to the receivers. He was the MD of DeLorean. That was his last job with them. He gave them the keys. And there's loads of books and there's loads of writing about it, that there was a British consortium that could have saved the company, but they missed their deadline. He was one of them. And what DeLorean was going to be, it's in his book, I think it's called John Z. DeLorean and Me. It came out a couple of weeks ago. And what it was going to be, they had secured the rights to use the Healey name, and they were going to make a 3-car lineup. So it was going to be the Healey Gullwing, which would be the DMC12, and they were going to keep the logo, so it would be the Dunmurry Motor Company, everything made in Dunmurray at the proper factory. So they'd keep the logo, they could keep the look of everything. You'd have the Healey Gullwing, and then you'd have the Healey 3500 and the Healey 2000. It would have been the TR7 and TR8.
Wow.
The receiver who oversaw the whole thing, his name escapes, Kenneth something.
Kenneth Receiver.
Yeah, Kenneth Receiver. That's
named well for his job.
Yeah, but he oversaw it with them. He set them up with the right people, and it would have been absolutely perfect. And at the last minute, everything was pulled under them, and that was when badness happened.
So it could have actually happened. It could have come back, but not badged as a DeLorean, badged as a Dunmurray.
It would have been the Dunmurry Motor Company produces the Healey Gullwing, the Healey 3500, the Healey 2000. It could have actually been a thing. They were also going to do, early on in the DeLorean days, John DeLorean said he was going to make a 4-door version, the DMC24, which would have had the gull wings on it. He also wanted to make a bus and like an earth mover.
Aren't there sketches? Aren't there some gyro sketches of the 4-door that were kicking around?
I saw a picture of the 4-door and it looks like a DeLorean but a bit longer with some extra doors.
It's quite, from memory, it's quite cool. A little bit Lagonda-ish.
But, not horrible.
No. Do you know where they would have made the TR7 and TR8?
They
in Dunmurray as well?
Dunmurray.
Really? So they'd have just gone to BL and gone, look, this is all going horribly wrong for you.
Pretty much everything in place. It was after they killed off the TR7, TR8, and they were going to build them under licence in Dunmurry, in that factory.
Great.
Wow.
It could have been actually brilliant. And it's not breaking news, but if you've read Barry's book, then it's not breaking news. If not, Gareth Jones on Speed exclusive before my documentary comes out.
Thank you. Where can we see your documentary and when, and what's it called?
The piece will go out on youtube.com/xcarfilms or xcar.com, or on my Twitter feed, hey my boy, hello. And we haven't given it a name yet because it's not finished, because we have several hundred hours of interviews to trawl through. We spoke to Barry Wills, we spoke to Mike Kimberley, Colin Spooner, 2 guys from Lotus, we spoke to several former DeLorean employees. The whole story is crazy, because what we set out to do wasn't to nail DeLorean to the wall, but to find out what it was like to work at DeLorean.
We look forward to finding out the answer to that in your show. I'm just thinking, DeLorean is the perfect brand to bring back, because look how Aston Martin benefits from having its own film franchise. DeLorean's already got one there anyway, but you would have to actually bring it back as a time machine. That's what you do.
You really would, yeah.
Maybe that's what the new Tesla is.
There was a story supposedly about that actually John DeLorean used to hang around in Hollywood quite a lot, and this was subject to some of the songs on the Neon album.
Stainless steel, yeah.
And
Stainless style, sorry.
the rumour that I've never been able to confirm was that he was after the product placement in that movie, and he knew Spielberg, and he wanted to get that car in that film not as a joke, which is what it was by the time the movie was made and came out, as this sort of comedy failed car.
You made a time machine
Out of a DeLorean? Yeah. Even
It
I
would
know
have been,
that.
you made a time machine out of a DeLorean, and it would have been, like it had been a Porsche or
It was
something.
originally supposed to be a fridge, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they decided that it would encourage kids to get into fridges, and that's no good.
Which is why, in the 4th Indiana Jones movie, if there ever was one,
Well,
which there
let's
isn't
pretend
because
there
it doesn't exist, but if there was, that's why Indiana Jones got in a fridge, in that explosion thing.
We've learnt too much today. It would have been a DeLorean fridge he would have got in. Alex Guy, what a joy having you on. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Again, genuine honour. You
Right.
people are lovely. I've been listening to this for several years, so actually being here is still a bit weird.
It's the listener's treat entirely. Richard Porter, thank you very much
you.
indeed. You learnt something today about
I
the
did,
DeLorean.
yeah,
That
it's
was
brilliant. We could talk
some
for hours
achievement.
about
Yeah.
this.
You're going to have to come back, will you?
Oh, God, yeah.
We'll have him back. I was Gareth. We're going to leave you with a tune. This one is... You've heard of Dafydd Bowen? Well, this isn't him. This is Dafydd Bowen, a sort of a Welsh interpretation. This is the mighty Phil Cornwell taking the vocals. This song is about Formula One, or indeed any motorsport driver, because the song is called Race Car Driver. See ya.
A fiddle, not just a pretty face. Muesli for breakfast, pasta for lunch, grapes for pudding. Now you mustn't eat a bunch. Who would deny themselves the pleasures of life? To stand on the podium with a model for a wife. Oh, that's who would. He's a helmeted hood. He's stealing a win, or at least he should have. He's as quick as a flash. He's got pockets full of cash. You know he doesn't drink bitter, and he's never smoked hash. Who would apply themselves in such a single-minded way, competing whatever the cost? He could get killed today. A race car driver doesn't care for much else. No religion or philosophy, at least that's what he tells us. He can't stand losing, he only wants to win. He's in to win it. Qualifying's not his thing. No, it ain't. imagine if you met him, then you'd struggle to forget him. He's a race car driver, overachiever and striver, with your attention to detail. Ever thought of changing tack? How about a job in retail instead of going round and round a track? Race car driver.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!